So I'm still coming to you from National Religious Broadcasters Convention. We're in Nashville and we're having a really great time here. If you want to see some live looks at what I've been up to, you can follow me on Instagram, same handle, Stacy on the right. So let's get into a little bit of a news roundup here. And I want to start off with what happened yesterday. AT&T had a major cell phone outage, and there were a lot of people speculating that it was a cyber attack or that it was a partial EMP. I saw people going doom and gloom pretty quick. The Debbie Downers were out in full force, but I chose to see it as something that happens in technology, which is sometimes things don't work. I was able to find in watching news stories and trying to figure out what exactly did happen because AT&T has been a bit mum. A professor who actually did some testing of his own and laid out a very plausible scenario for what could have happened yesterday with AT&T's outage. Take a look.
Usually it is some kind of a software bug that goes undetected, and if you haven't properly tested before release, it can have certain unforeseen outcomes.
Ravi Prakash is professor of computer sciences at the University of Texas at Dallas. Prakash lost phone service too. It is only his theory, but he feels the outage could have been sparked by a network software patch.
Typically, you would push these kinds of patches late at night when there are very few customers online to provide minimum disruption.
Software patches to fix bugs happens all the time.
For some, we do get notification for when you are updating your phone, but for the service provider, they are under no obligation to inform us that they are updating their own network.
Networks that stand up on three prongs. The first carries voice and data from a phone to the wireless link, ultimately to another phone. He tested that, found it to be okay.
I also made a call using my Microsoft Teams that UTD provides to my cell phone, which is the wireless service. That worked. So that's why I'm saying maybe the core network was fine.
The second component, location services. How providers know where you are and the tower you are on.
So out of curiosity, I looked up Live 360, Find My Phone. They were all showing my correct location and the correct location of my family. So I know that that service was working even though all of them were connected over Wi-Fi.
That leaves the third leg, the connection between your phone and the tower. That's where he thinks the problem occurred.
And if that trust and identification doesn't work, then my phone is going to tell me that I can't find a service.
So I love the fact that as a professor of computer science, he decided to test out some of the things that he had going on to see if they were working. And to me, especially married to a tech guy, I'm now the mother of a tech guy, I think the software patch, it sounds much more feasible than some of the other things that were floated. If it was a cyber attack, that would have been announced in the news. You would have seen comments about, reliability and security and all of those things. That wasn't the case. The other part that I think a lot of Americans kind of forget about this is that we have an interconnected system where you might be on a smaller carrier and you might be getting, discounted cell phone service. You're with a kind of a discounter, but they're still using AT&T's network. AT&T's network is the largest, which means it's most prone to outages simply by nature of its size. And I don't think it was catastrophic yesterday, except if you were in the unique situation of only having AT&T services and not having access to a landline. If you didn't have access to a landline or someone nearby who could dial 911 for you, then it did present kind of a bit of a rougher scenario. I think we've survived. It's yet another slightly apocalyptic moment, and we've moved on from it. So glad to see that, but he raised some really great points. Now I want to move to Google's Gemini. It's their new AI system, and it is an unbelievably robust offering because it's based on Google's kind of all knowledge base of everything that all of us are doing. Remember, I think the majority of Americans, well over 90% of Americans, have a Google Gmail account or somehow use Google either as their search engine or other tools. So they have Google Sheets, they have Google Workspaces, all of the different tools that they offer. Their interaction and interfacement with Americans is at pretty much full saturation, which makes it interesting that they rolled out their AI product and filled it with anti-white features. So this is not an accident. This is not something that happens in a vacuum that then appears in the software once it's rolled out and the engineers are surprised by it. This is a feature. Google engages in a lot of DEI practices. They were one of the early adopters of critical race theory as programming, and then DEI, which is the latest iteration. It's all based on the Marxist platform of deconstructing society and remaking it in an image that is against what in the olden days and last century it was against wealth and people who own land, and now it is a tool that's used to divide us based on our characteristics, innate characteristics like race, or it could be height, it could be weight, it could be anything that they can use to divide us. And so Google's AI, Gemini, is actually built so that it does not represent white people at all. There were literally 40 or 50,000 people on the platform in one 24-hour period who were all attempting to do one thing: generate an image of a white person. They typed in Vikings, they typed in the Pope, which, by the way, are you aware that there's never been another race of Pope? All of the popes have been white. I had never thought about it because I'm not Catholic. So it was obviously full of DEI type of programming. It was an embarrassment for them. And so now they have basically taken it down so that they can look at it again because it's so obviously flawed. The last bit in our news roundup is the DEI training. So you have hundreds of thousands of American soldiers who are being forced, and there's soldiers, airmen, seamen, you name it, military troops who are being forced to actually take diversity, equity, and inclusion training in our U.S. Armed Forces as a part of their training. And when I was on active duty, it wasn't DEI. We had to take training on sexual harassment, like, don't do it, stuff like that. And so they use those same training hours now for DEI. So you have about 200 soldiers who have now come out, and they're currently serving in the U.S. military. They voluntarily participated in an independent survey, and the survey shows that the 229 participants representing all branches in the military as well as enlisted and officer ranks, this is nearly 86% of the survey's participants, said they had been required to participate in DEI. Now, these participants also expressed in the survey that these views don't reflect those of the Department of Defense or the respective military branches, but the participants didn't want to take the training. They actually ended up spending time out of their day where they could have been training on military readiness or in their job core functions. They were instead forced to take these classes. This is not a good use of their time. They deserve to have better opportunities within the ranks to learn and grow in their career path, as opposed to learning these Marxist ideas. I don't agree with it, and I think it's good that this survey shows that these service members would rather be doing something else as well. We'll be back with more now here on Salem News Channel. Download our app so you never miss anything. We'll be right back.